Welcome to question 116 of the secundae. Uh, this topic is quarreling. Quarreling is a topic which is hinged as a deficiency in affability or friendliness, as we could, if we remember back from question 114. In the Catechism, the closest connection to it is in response to the 10th commandment, which is about envy, covetousness. St. Thomas doesn't frame it in the connection to covetousness or to the 10th commandment, but I think it's close enough. It's close enough to what the point of it is, and the quote from St. John Chrysostom is particularly important. He said, "We fight one another." This idea of fighting is the idea of quarrel. And envy arms us against one another. If everyone strives to unsettle the body of Christ, where shall we end up? We are engaged in making Christ's body a corpse. We declare ourselves members of one and the same organism, yet we devour one another like beasts. I think that's particularly relevant, as we'll see in the next couple of slides. Quarreling is, as I said, a deficiency of affability, deficiency of friendliness, friendship. And the opposite of that was question 115, which was an excess of affability, which was flattery. So these are often compared. The excesses and deficiencies are often compared to one another. When a person contradicts another using words is the definition St. Thomas uses to define quarreling. Others sections of it also relate to deeds, but particularly, I think it's particularly focused on words, quarreling with words. When one of the important questions within the Summa concerning quarreling is, what is it? What is it a response to? And often they pick up different virtues and say, well, this is really not connected with affability, it's connected with envy, or it's really not connected to affability, it's connected to anger. And what St. Thomas points out in this section, which I think is very good and maybe one of these things which can be used in every section, this kind of good universal truth he kind of snuck into this question, is when you consider an act, you look at the act in and of itself. So you look at the species of the act. So we're looking at the species of the act of quarreling. Now, it might have different causes. Anger could cause a person to quarrel. Envy could cause a person to quarrel. There's countless number of vices which could cause a person to quarrel. But it's not the causes, the thing that instigates the quarreling doesn't create its species. The species is the act itself. So whatever the cause is, we're looking at quarreling in terms of its relationship as a deficiency of affability. That's an important point. There are external motives to flattery and quarreling. The external motives of flattery, that's the most negative, the one that St. Thomas defined as a mortal sin, was when flattery can be more grievous because it deceives in order to acquire honor and gain. So it's a mischievous lie, if we want to go all the way back to question 110. It's a lie that has a deadly effect, a grave effect. Grievous has the same Latin root as grave, right? It's grievous, gravius. It's related to something of heavy and serious importance. So when a person flatters in order to get one up on somebody, then it's a grave matter. But quarreling can also be a grave matter. And when a quarreler intends to deny the truth, kind of back to that again, that idea of lying, or to hold the offer the offer con- or to hold the offer content. Uh, the quarreling may be more grievous. So there's this battle, which is more grievous, flattery or quarreling. And St. Thomas said, given the specific circumstances, either one could be more grievous than the other. Both of them could be grievous. Both of them could be more. Both of them could be mortal sin. We saw already flattery in question 115, which could be mortal sin. Well, so can quarreling. Quarreling can also be mortal sin. But then he kind of goes on uh, and says, well, in most circumstances, there are specific examples when flattery could be more grievous than quarreling, but most instances, quarreling is usually worse. He says, the virtue of friendship has the greater tendency to please than to displease. So the quarrelsome man who exceeds in giving displeasure sins more grievously than the flatterer who exceeds in giving pleasures. So if the point of friendship is to be pleasurable, then a flatterer who gives pleasure is closer to affability than the one who quarrels. If you quarrel, you're the opposite of affability. But if you have any questions about that, you can go back to question 115 and 114, affability and flattery. Quarreling is grievous, and I think he has some interesting insights into it. It is more grievous to harm a person openly by violence, as it were, than secretly. So when a person flatters, they flatter in their heart, they know that they are deceiving. In their heart, they know that they're kind of tricking. But if you are the one being flattered, what you're hearing is just lovely things. So if you're being flattered, you walk away from that conversation. If you have been successfully uh, flattered, you walk away from the situation feeling very good about yourself. um, it could be leading you down the wrong path morally, but uh, the worst case scenario, you feel very good about yourself. Compared to one who quarrels, who doesn't do it secretly but does it very openly. If one quarrels to excess, it could be fighting with you in a very public space where you lose your honor, and nobody walks away from being quarreled with thinking wonderful. Right? If you walk away from being flattered, you think, oh, what a great person that is. They acknowledged all of my good virtues. But if you're being quarreled with, and they are successful at quarreling with you, you're probably going to leave very angry. You're going to leave very upset. Um, and the example he gives is of being robbed. Uh, Although you may feel very deceived, if you come home from the movies and somebody has stolen from your house, you might feel very deceived. But really, it is better than being robbed at gunpoint, right? It is more traumatic to be robbed openly and notoriously than it is to be been done secretly. So in that way, it's more grave. It's more graver. It's more serious. He then brings up the point of if actions are vile or grievous. And to this, I think going back to the Latin is helpful. So he says flattery is viler because it's done in secret, and if a person is successfully flattered, their flesh, their ego, enslaves reason. So even though reason would say the person has made some errors and needs to improve their life, flattery has enfleshed that, has protected the vice. So it is done uh, by making you almost stupid. It has slowed you, it has dulled you. Um, whereas quarreling proceeds from a greater contempt, and it is more grievous. And again, that gravius, it's heavy, it's grave, it's mortal in some sense, right? It's death, versus just being um, deceived and slowed down and hindered. The grave is more than a hindrance. So uh, the actual term for terpior is ugly. It makes you ugly, almost, I guess, like a hunchback is. Uh, it's an enfleshing, it's an overabundance of flesh of the elephant man, who the flesh has grown out of proportion in some ways. The outgrowth of flesh has made the person ugly. You want to have a balance, right? The proper balance of flesh in order for it to be beautiful. So, um, same thing. You don't want to be called ugly, but you don't want to be called the grave either. If you had to pick between ugliness and the grave, you'd probably pick ugly. So, just in conclusion, quarreling, using the words of St. John Chrysostom, makes the body of Christ a corpse. Very interesting imagery. Um, it's in a deficiency in affability if we are fighting with people for the sake of fighting, uh, outwardly assaulting our neighbor. We lose that friendship that's required for civic equity. Right? If we look back to question 115, it lacks justice, it lacks equity. Um, Quarreling is an insult to equity. Therefore, we should seek to be affable to our neighbor. We should seek to be friendly to our neighbor and to only challenge uh, when challenging helps the person who we're challenging. If they need a little bit of pushback in order to move them in the right direction, that's okay. But quarreling outwardly for the sake of quarreling is not helpful. And that's all we have for this week.